Chapter 2. My meeting with the Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. Later on in this book will largely go back to the Master Saduno, Petedenov. But that will take some chapters to go back there and to know a lot about this master later. Now I have to follow more or less a chronological way so that everybody can understand. In my last chapter, I was already in the Bonfin, the place of the school of Omraam, where I arrived, in fact, the day that he arrived, more precisely. So I didn't see him. He was arriving the same day, but he was in his part and I didn't meet him. But to be able to explain everything correctly, I have to go back a little bit in the time so that you have every element to understand and trying to stay very logical and stable so that we can get the complete story. For that, I have to go back to Scotland in the Shaolin monastery, where I stayed quite a long time. One day, I was invited to do a very special exercise. My master in the monastery asked me, like a lot of other people, to create a combination of Qigong, that is to say, the way to develop the energy, to stabilize the Qi within ourselves. We were invited to go and fetch the deep knowledge that could dwell inside ourselves. And I remember that the master of the Shaolin temple, at the end, when I was left alone in a place, told me that is turned towards your past, that will be turned towards your future. Understand it and do what is needed. I took this exercise as something very deep. I wrote a lot. For maybe 2 weeks, I was isolated in this place, meditation, exercise, eating a little bit, and nothing else. And there I created a combination. We had a lot of Chinese movement for the energy, but the more I was meditating, and the more I felt like creating something totally different. It was like a power, like a knowledge coming from very deep. I created what I called the 12 pearls, because they were based on 12 pearls and 24 breathings. It was something logical, mathematical. But the movements that were a complete logical combination for me were completely different, or quite different from the Chinese and Japanese work. These 12 pearls, I developed different forms of combination, stronger forms as well, and Bigu form, which is a form to develop even more the energy within yourself. It's very technical, but they were all based on the same structure of the 12 pearls that I created. I explain this because it will have a link to see with the future. And now that I explained this part, I will go back to the Bonfin. I am therefore arriving at the Bonfin. I'm going, of course, to register and for that to present my card. That is, you mustn't forget, a fake card. And the lady at the reception, she's German, I have forgotten her name, it was a long time ago. She doesn't find this card very logical. She's a bit surprised with the number and everything else. There's something, she didn't tell me, but she guessed something. She was asking a lot of questions, making sure that it was fine and everything else. So I did my best to answer, to look as cool as possible, because my goal was mainly to be able to meet this master. Of course, I was not really prepared because I didn't have this knowledge of 1 year. But I could manage. The journey to go there was very difficult because we were obliged to buy tickets that were very cheap. The journey was really tough. I was with my friend. I was also with my baby. So it was really hard. We didn't sleep for the complete night. After that, we put the tent. And it was hard to find a place in the Bonfin. It was a bit chaotic. So after that, it was not yet midday. It was maybe 10 o'clock. So I decided to lie down because I was absolutely exhausted. I was really quite weak because I worked hard before coming and so on and so on. And there's a lady arriving. She was a sister of the Bonfin, and she was somebody who was looking after the organization, after the security, with everything. She was Sister Madeleine. She was with a dog, a black dog, I remember, who had been adopted by the Master Omraam. But Madeleine was on charge to look after this dog. And she sees that I'm quite exhausted, weak and tired, and she says, "You cannot stay here. You have to leave the Bonfin." And I said, "I beg your pardon. I come from Metz. It's nearly 1,000 kilometers away from here. I paid the entry for 4 days, and you're asking me to leave now? Yeah, you're pale, you seem to be weak, you're exhausted. You cannot stay. You know the vibrations of the Bonfin, they are really intense. You will not be able to bear. So you have to put back your tent, everything up, and you go back home." And I started to say, "You must be joking. What is this? I mean, I arrive in a place of the light, of the teaching of the Master Omraam, and you welcome me with that?" And she said, "But anyway, I don't give you the permission to stay." And I said, "But I don't give a fuck about your permission. I didn't come to meet Madeleine. I came to meet Omraam, the Master Omraam. Are you the Master Omraam?" And she said, "No, but I speak in his name." And I said, "I don't give a fuck." And she said, "All right, I will go and get some brothers and you will leave." And I said, "Then take at least 20 brothers, because I am a master of martial arts, and underneath 20, you don't have a chance." And she left. She was really flabbergasted. I was so negative and so violent and so, and I was disobedient as well. So then it is the time I wait, but Madeleine has no time to come back because there's the conference. Midday is the meal, but also there's a conference. But Master Omraam, who was himself traveling as well, like me, was exhausted, so he didn't come to do the conference. So it was a recording of an old conference. And in this conference, recorded, it was very funny. Because the master, the first time that I heard the master, he was shouting. He was completely crazy. Really angry. Pissed off, And he said, "There are some people who are trying to go in the middle between the disciples who are coming and myself. And I allow no one, I do say no one, to come in the middle and to try to prevent the disciples to meet me, ever. Maybe these people who are arriving, they have been through the darkest chimneys, and they could look very dark, very violent, very different. But I allow no one to be in the middle." It was funny, this speech, regarding just what happened. And strangely enough, Madeleine, with their brothers, didn't come back this afternoon. I don't know if it was because of my threat or it is because of the speech of Omraam, but finally, no one came to kick me out. In the afternoon, I went to walk with my friend and also with my kid in a push chair, and we visited a bit the Bonfin. we had a very, very small tent, and we knew that to sleep we had to let half of the tent for my kid. And so we could sleep only with the legs outside of the tent, because it was a very small tent and we took what we had with the money we had. When we went to visit the rest of the Bonfin, we found some places with huge caravans for only one person, but so big that you could be at least 20 people in one, for one person. And I remember that I started to joke with my friend, and I said, "You see, we're in heaven now. It's a vibration of light. There's the vibration for the poor people and the vibration for the very rich people. But we're in heaven." So of course, I started to make fun, because I am not somebody who's just following and stupid. I analyze, I watch. So we were indeed in this situation. And we, as I said before, discovered as well, and that was very shocking for me, as I explained before, that the Master Peter Aïvanhov was rejected like, he was just a clown. It's not like the Master Omraam. And that made me very angry. As well, I discovered that the body, the existence of the body, and even more specifically the sexuality, were strictly forbidden in the Bonfin. Well, at least the sex. So when I met somebody who said, "Yeah, but the sex is forbidden here," I said, "What do you mean? What do you mean? I mean, what are you talking about?" And they said, "Yeah, even a couple together, the land of the Bonfin is holy. So you are not supposed to have sex in this place. It's forbidden." And then, there I was very surprised. I said, what are you talking about? I mean, sex is part of the life. It's not bad. And no. You have to transcend the sex, and you don't do anything like this. I said, okay, all right. At one point, we passed in front of a room where people were singing. So there was a lady in front, and I said, "Oh, you have a choral, you have a..." And she said, "No, it's part of the teaching here, we sing." And for me, I was very surprised, because I was highly trained physically, perfectly well trained, a really professional with the body. But with the singing, with the music, I had no clue at all. So I remember that the lady started to explain. You see here, for instance, there's a music with 4 voices. And I remember I said, "No, I hear only one voice." Because I never practiced the music, so I couldn't make the difference. I heard only one voice. And she looked at me like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "You see, for instance, you're alto." With my voice, she said, you're alto. And I had no clue what she was talking about. So I told her, "No, I am EG." And she said, no, you are alto. I said, "I'm sorry, I know who I am, I'm EG." I had no clue what she was talking about. Soprano, sopranino, alto, bass. I never heard these words. It was not part of my culture. So I remember that the lady looked at me like, "He's a complete idiot, this one." And I saw very quickly the first day that at the same time, the body was totally refused. For instance, there was a gymnastic that was done every day. I checked this gymnastic, it was at midday, it was a disaster. There were no 2 people doing the same thing. And when I said, "But your the gymnastic is a disaster," they were just saying, "Yeah, but it doesn't matter, it's the essence, it's not the body, blah, blah, blah." So I saw that I was really in the wrong place, because me being a master, a professional of the body, I was a piece of shit. But not being a musician, not being able to sing, I was a piece of shit as well. So the first day I thought, it's not turning very well. It's not turning very well. Then arrived, when we went back to the tent, a big guy with a big smile. The guy was strong and stable. It was Yannick Percherencier. My first day in the Bonfin. And in fact, he had heard that I had problems with Madeleine before. And when he started to speak about this, I thought that he was looking for troubles. So I started to answer a little bit. And I said, no, cool down. I come here because I wondered if you have any problem, if you are ill. And I said, well, today I'm extremely weak because of everything that we did. And effectively, in addition, I am diabetic, type 1. And he had a big smile and he said, look, I have some what here that is magnetized. I have also something to put on the stomach, and you are going to wear this during the night so that the what is on your stomach. And you will see it will work naturally this evening. At least the guy was so smiley, so friendly, he was not asking for money or anything. So with all of this, I was quite open with him because he was the first one to be friendly. You know? So I thought, yeah, okay, no problem. I found that a bit weird, but at least, it's my spirit to try, to experiment. So why not? It's not going to kill me because I have a bit of what on my stomach. So I decided to experiment this in the evening. When we were visiting the Bonfin, we were very surprised to see that the spirit of the brotherhood didn't exist at all. No one was friendly. Honestly, it was quite a disaster. They all had a big smile, as you have to be in a sort of stupid temple or sect, I don't know what, but nothing else. No one was proposing to help, to give you an advice, to give you an information. And in the evening, when it was time to sleep, we had to sleep, as I said, nearly half the body out of the tent. And I can say that in the days we stayed after that, there is not one person who came to say, look, I have a huge caravan. For at least 20 people, I am alone, come to sleep in my place. Never. There is never one who proposed the smallest thing, ever. When I spoke with Yannick in the afternoon, he asked me for how long we were there, and I said for 4 days, because I cannot afford more. And he said, then you have to write a letter to the Master Omraam, and you can put this letter in the mailbox in the big room where we eat all together. He will get the letters, yours and many others, and maybe he will invite you. One never knows. You have only 4 days, but maybe you will meet him in private. And I said, that is very interesting. That is the kind of thing that I want to do, to know more about this so-called master. Because I'm not sure he's a master. I met fanatic people who are not exactly like the people I would expect to meet regarding his so high knowledge. And apart from you, Yannick, who is really an example, I mean, if I see that your master is the Master Omraam, with you, I would like to meet the Master Omraam. For the others, when I look at what they are, I don't want to meet their master. So, Yannick Percherencier was like sent to me, like nearly magical, to connect, because I was so fed up with the aggression and so on, with the people fanatic, with the singing, refusing the body, going in opposition of everything I knew. I was nearly about to leave. And with the meeting with Yannick, I must say that his presence, his gentleness, invited me to stay longer. So I decided to do the Surya Yoga the next morning, which was the meditation at the sunrise that they used to do in this school every morning. I knew where the master used to sit down because there was like a big seat, like a sort of stool in stone. So I went to the place of the sunrise and I decided to sit down in a place where I would be very, very close to the master. I wanted to see him, to see how he was breathing, to feel his energy and everything else. And I started to do the sunrise, the meditation of the sunrise. And again, when I arrived, I was very surprised to see a lot of people. They were at the beginning of their meditation because they were all arriving in 20 minutes, one after the other. And when I arrived, a lot were already sitting. And I saw people in horrible position. The shining monk that I was felt like going to everybody and say, come on, it's not here, you're not here to sleep or to rest, it's a meditation work. But I was not there for that, so I said nothing, but I was gently smiling. Then I sat down and did a meditation as I learned in the Shaolin temple. The master is arriving a little bit afterwards. He's sitting down, therefore nearly in front of me, let's say 3 meters away from me. And he's giving me his back, which is logical because he's looking at the sun that is going to rise. So we are all looking at the same direction. Then, after a little while, the sun is appearing. We do some exercises of pranayama, breathing to stimulate the energy, the chakras and so on. That are typical exercises of yoga. And after that, when the sun is still very, very, it's really the sunrise, the sun is still not red, but just after being red, shining, but just at the beginning. The master is turning, and is turning towards all of us. So for the first time, I look at his face. Well, in fact, I tried, because he was in front of me, and when I was looking at him, there was the sun just on his left-hand side. I mean, for me, looking at him. And on my right-hand side, that is his left-hand side, my right-hand side, there was 2 rings in which the master had put his cane. So that the cane was standing on his side. And the top of the cane was with a big crystal. And there was the light of the sun going through this crystal and shining in my eyes. Therefore, I tried to look at the Master Omraam, but I saw only a big aura of light. I could see more or less his shape, but nothing more. And I thought, wow, special effects, very impressive. It was just complete random. But it was really, really impressive. The first time I looked at him, he was like in a big aura of light. And I could nearly see a little bit him in this big aura of light. I knew that after the sunrise, the master was going down from the big rock where we were, and I had been told that we could make a line with the kids, and that the Master Omraam was going to the kids and giving candies. He had a big bag full of candies. And some people said, you can do that, as you have a kid, maybe the master will stop to you, will give a candy, like this you are close to him, and so on. And again, as an expert of martial arts, I really did that. I was really doing my best to try him in the pure spirit of martial arts. I wanted to meet him at the level of the energy, at the level of the Shaolin monk, to test him with my systems. So we're on the line, and the master were more or less in the middle, and the master started to give some candies to kids. And at one point, when he was about 3 people away, I really concentrated on him, like aggressing him, martial arts, trying to find what we call a hole where he's not concentrating so that I could attack him. Of course, I wouldn't have done it, but mentally I wanted to test him. And I really concentrated on him to attack him, as we used to do in the Shaolin Temple. And when he was maybe 3 people away, I did that. He was giving candy, then he turned to me, really like a Shaolin monk as well, like a samurai. And he looked at me like doing the exercise of concentration, really like in the temple. Then he stayed some seconds without moving. And when I stopped my concentration, because I saw that he had seen and I don't want to go too far, he smiled and he came straight to me, jumping about 3 people, therefore. But for me, I thought that he came for my kid, which is logical, because I was holding my baby. And he came in front of me, and you have to know that in the tradition of the school, in the sunrise, you don't speak. So he came in front of me, and he started to have a big smile, and he started to mime as if he was talking, moving his arms and moving his mouth, but he was not talking, not one sound. And you look at him, and I thought, And I wondered if he was not testing me either. As I tried my system to test him, he was trying to test me. But I had no idea what he was doing. I thought, poor guy is a bit tired maybe, or maybe he's testing me and I know nothing about his way. So I was looking at him a bit lost, smiling. If he was doing a test, I had no clue what he was doing, which was the opposite that happened with him when I did my test. And after that, he took a candy that he gave to my son. Well, he tried, because my son was 6 months old. So you can guess that in this situation, my kid didn't care about the candy, couldn't realize. So he was trying to give, and at one point, I spoke and I told him, no, Master is too young. He cannot take a candy, he doesn't care. And the Master looked at me like machine guns in his eyes. Like, what? Did you speak now? Did you say something? And I was looking, hello, okay, and apart from that, did you have a good night? I mean, nice dreams? And then he started to concentrate on my son again, tried to give the candy again, and I put my hand underneath the hand of my son, and I caught the candy to be nice, to be discreet. When I did that, the Master Omraam was like very, very delighted, and he left. There were many people waiting. He didn't turn the head on the others, just left. He was walking like Santa Claus, big steps, moving his arms, very, very happy. And while he was going away, I unwrapped the candy and I started to eat it. And then people came to me. They were really unhappy. And they started to argue. They said, I don't know what you did to him. He forgot us. Normally he gives candies to everybody. I don't know what you did, blah, blah, blah. And they started to argue. And I started to answer, hey, cool down. The first time I have no idea, and I didn't oblige him to come to me and to leave after that, so you cool down. And while I was talking, I was also eating the candy. And they just stopped and they said, are you just eating the candy? I said, yeah, of course, it's a candy, so it's not my kid who's going to eat it, so I eat it. And they said, but the master, he works on the candies, he magnetizes them, they have of a great value, we keep them for decades. And I said, well, you are wrong. If he's magnetizing them, it's the time ever to eat them. And they looked at me like, idiot, barbarian, you cannot sing, you cannot play music, you understand nothing. You eat the candies of the master. You're very stupid. And I started to have a lot of fans. I waited a little bit, and then We have been watching the gymnastic, their habits, a little bit, everything. And it's clear that we're not extremely welcome. I mean, people were not very delighted to see us. And as I had written a letter, as Yannick had told me, I had written the letter, and in this letter I wrote frankly, because you have to understand that since I was 6 years old, I was practicing with Japanese, Chinese people, so I was much more Oriental than European. I had a lot of difficulties of communication with the Europeans because I was not at all European. I was much more Oriental, you know. I was always with these people and I lived like them, I practiced like them, so I was completely Oriental. And then it was a question because I had a lot of difficulties to be in contact with the others in the world, not only the Montha. And I wrote this letter to the Master Omraam saying, I get my best to work. But I'm more Chinese, Japanese now than European. Is it wrong? Should I be European? Or do I have to go on in the path and ignore completely the Europeans, even if it's not working with them? And when I entered the big room to go to eat, there was like a column with the mailbox in iron, with a little opening so you could see inside. I put my letter, and just when I had put my letter, the Master Omraam arrived by another door in front on a sort of stage with a table and where I was sitting down to eat and so. So I go to sit down as well. And the Master Omraam, hopefully he could invite me because he had this session of meetings, you know, with people, with a letter and answering to the letter. So I did that in the hope of being invited before leaving the Montha. And when the Master is going to start the conference, is going to answer point after point to my letter, which was a very specific letter about, he explained, if you are not Chinese or Japanese, don't try to be one of them. You are here in Europe for something special. You were born in Europe. You are linked to Europe. You don't try to refuse to be European. You have to work like a European. You can develop the qualities of other countries, but don't be Oriental when you're not. In fact, what you're trying to do is to be different. You don't want to be part of the system, and that is absolutely correct. But if, for not being part of the system, you decide to be part of another system, you just belong to another system. A Spanish who is living in Denmark is different among the Danish, but he's not different, he's only Spanish. He's not himself. The real initiation is to be free. The real initiation is to be yourself. Don't be anything else than yourself. Use different systems to develop your freedom, your intelligence. But don't define yourself as being Oriental, Japanese, Chinese, or even from the White Brotherhood. Be what you are, in a sense, turn to the light. And work your specificities and be exceptional. Be yourself. And then you are exceptional. He was really answering to each point of my letter. And when he explained that, I realized that I tried to be so free by being different. But working only at the difference, I was obliged to go to link myself to something else. And then I was very, very different, but very identical to the Chinese or the Japanese. So I decided, therefore, to change later on and to work on the fact of being myself. And from this first meeting, first day in the Bonfin, I left a lot the spirit of what I followed in the martial arts to start to be an expert of martial art, but very relaxed, leaving a lot the Japanese and Chinese protocol. I specify that at that time, when I started to be less and less in England, because I was less and less studying in England and going back more and more often in France, I started to work with another master, because the master with whom I worked died, Shigeru Egami, the Japanese who sent me to the Shaolin Temple. So I started to work with Murakami Tetsuji. That was the disciple of Shigeru Egami sensei. So I was still completing the Japanese work. We were working so hard and until we were about to die and so on. And there I was extremely surprised. How could this master read my letter that was in the mailbox just on my side? I could see the side of the corner of the letter. So I said, he's reading a letter that is still in the mailbox. How does he do that? But it is true that with my discipline, with everything that I practiced, I saw some people were able to do that. Maybe not to that level. I said, okay, his psychic is super hyper psychic. But okay. For me, at the beginning, I was really flabbergasted. Then I said, all right, I could put that into a sort of classification that was more or less acceptable for me. But at the end of this conference, he started to stand up like very angry. And he turned straight to me. And he tapped on his right pocket. And he said, and now you are going to see. I have a letter. I have a letter. You are going to see this letter. And he looked at me really angry because I spoke to him very, straight, clear. Point 1, point 2, point 3. In the Oriental way, not, please, maybe you could maybe tell me. And when he did that, I looked at the letter, and I swear, he panicked me totally. I was about to stand up and to run away. It was like the fear of an animal. What he did was totally impossible. He couldn't have my letter. How could he? I was nearly sure that I could see the corner of my letter. How could he have read my letter and have my letter in hand? I mean, it was totally impossible. And after so many information, so clear, so surprising, I was about, I swear, to stand up in a complete panic, to run away, to go I don't know where. Started to sweat. I felt extremely unwell. Impossible, game over. And he took the letter in his hands, looked at me, sat down, took a big smile and said, it's a letter from a sister, and he started to read the poetry. I was so... But he just panicked me. He just panicked me. For me, it was like the answer of what I did in the morning. I challenged him as a Shaolin. And what he did with his speech, as if he was talking to me but without a word, and what he did after that with the letter, with the conference and everything, he told me, I am the master. You are the disciple. You follow. You work. It's really what I felt. It's really what I received. In the afternoon, Yannick came back. And about Yannick, something happened that I didn't specify, that I'm going to specify now, because in the Bonfin I started to be in a world of science fiction. In the evening, I did what Yannick told me, to put the watt on the stomach, and just to try. And in the middle of the night, let's say around 3 o'clock, I woke up. I had to jump out of the tent and to take that off. It was not hot, it was burning. I had to take it off very quickly. And I thought, I was checking, am I red? Did he put a product on that? What is this joke? So when, after that, Yannick came, I told him, what did you put on what? I mean, what is this joke? It's dangerous. And he said, there's nothing. It's only magnetized by a lady. I said, but that's impossible. What's that? Then I told him what happened at the sunrise. I told him also about the conference, the letter, the joke that he did. And Yannick was just smiling. He said, oh, it's nothing. The Master Omraam is just welcoming you. He has noticed your presence. He has noticed what you did. He's answering to you. Then I remember he was, sorry, I'm a bit ill today, caught a cold. He was about to leave, and he turned back and said, oh, by the way, the Master wants to see you. Can you come tomorrow? Yes, okay. So things were going very, very quickly. And the next day, I was at the meeting. And the meeting happened something very weird. Because I expected like a private lesson, but not at all. He was asking me my opinion about the bon fin, about the disciples. And I told him, apart from, at that time, Yannick, that I had met, I said, I don't like your people. I don't like this place. And so on. And instead of, I am honest, so I just told him what I thought. And instead of getting angry, he asked more questions. Why? What do you criticize? Ah, yes, and that. And how do you find the big room to eat? And how do you find the rock for the meditation? Ah, yes, yes. And how do you find that and that? He was asking a lot of questions, as if I were, sort of judge to give a clear opinion about everything that was in the bon fin. So I answered with clear honesty, and at that time I thought, well, maybe he's not used to somebody honest, so he's asking a neutral opinion from somebody who's arriving to have an idea. So I did my best to describe and to give really everything that I could give as an honest, neutral opinion. And at the end, he asked me how long, because 20 minutes goes very quickly. And he told me, how long are you going to stay? And I said, I will be leaving in 1 or 2 days, the time, that I meet him and so on. As I could stay only 4 days. And he said, no. Here I invite you. Here you are at home. It's an initiatic school. You are here to learn. But here you are at home. You don't have anything to pay. You are at home. So you stay the time you want. You're absolutely welcome. You're at home. And I said, I cannot pay more. No, you don't have to pay. You're at home. So you stay the time you want. Told you, you're at home. You're welcome. Learn, watch, and learn. You have so much to discover. And then I went to see the lady at the reception, and I told her that I was invited by the Master Omraam. And herself, she said, what? I will go to talk to him. And I thought, what, you want to go to talk to your master? To tell him that he shouldn't invite somebody? So maybe she did it, I never knew. But I was invited, and I stayed the time I wanted, and I stayed about a month, because after that I had to go back to my place, unfortunately, because we had to pay the rent to look after some stuff. So even invited at one point, our obligations in the society pushed us to go back. So I stayed a month, maybe a little bit more than a month, a maximum that I could do. I stayed, I met 2 or 3 people who were also interesting, but most of them were completely hysterical. With my friend, who was also one of my students in martial arts, in dancing and everything physical, we saw the panorhythmy. So we discovered the panorhythmy, which is a sort of dancing, and we watched once, and after that we just decided to enter, and we followed. And when we had finished, everybody said, "Oh, that is so fantastic when you dance the panorhythmy, your friend and yourself, oh, it was marvelous, it's so cool, blah, blah, blah." While in fact, we were just doing an improvisation because we followed what the people did. We were just copying like this, And no one saw that it was in fact the first time that we were there. We're just concentrating on the others and following as well as we could, which for a professional like me and my friend was not very difficult. Too difficult at least. Doing that and learning also the gymnastics that they used to do, I was at that time very surprised, not to say flabbergasted, to see that the 12 pearls that I had invented in the Shaolin Temple some years before were built on the movement of the panorhythmy and on the gymnastic. I found a lot of movements, not from the Shaolin Temple, as I said before, because I did some completely different movements, but from there. And there I remembered what my master told me, that I had to do this work to go and fetch what was dwelling within myself, from my past and from my future. And I thought that he meant something about this white brotherhood, that I had to do something with this white brotherhood, because I was like in the energy linked to this place or to this knowledge. And I loved the master. Really, I loved the master. I played with him. He was laughing a lot. One day we met a couple, and I was with my friend, and they were looking at the house of the master, and they said, "Oh, it's so marvelous. The light is on until 2 o'clock. Then in the morning he gets up at 5 o'clock for the sunrise and so on. He sleeps only 3 hours a night. He's a god." And before I could say anything, my friend just said, "Unless he's afraid of the darkness when he sleeps." And I was laughing a lot, but believe me, the others, they were not laughing at all. And when I told the story to Omraam, he was laughing so much, he was crying. He was crying of laughing, So he loved to be with me because I was making fool of a lot of people. And also, I discovered a master that was very strict, but not at all the New Age person that a lot of people wanted him to be. For instance, I was sometimes invited to watch TV with him. And I discovered that he loved John Wayne. He was an actor from the past, a cowboy, always in the story of cowboys and so on. And he loved John Wayne. He loved also to watch wrestling. The fake wrestling where the people are, everything is prepared before and so on. He loved that, and he was laughing quite a lot on this because very often it was just, and people were saying, "Well, the violence is bad," and it showed that the Master Omraam was also against the violence, but at the same time he loved films like the film of John Wayne, the wrestling. And very often what the students were saying was not what the master was saying. There's only one thing that I didn't like in the Bonfin at all, that was also protected by the Master Omraam. Master Omraam himself was also clearly against the sex. He was against the body in general. And for him it's clear that the panorhythmy and the gymnastic were not extremely important. While the music was very important. When he spoke sometimes in conferences about the sex, he was deeply disgusted. When you have sex, you leak, you penetrate, this is so disgusting, you take this position. And when I listened to him describing everything that was bad, basically, the sexuality for him was really the procreation of the Christians, nothing else. Basic position, stomach against stomach, and nothing else. While for all the rest, everything where the students were fanatic, when I spoke with Omraam, he was saying, no, it's not like this, they understand like that, and I could talk with him at a different level. But about the sexuality, the nudity, and even the nudity, he was deeply disgusted, to the point that when he was going to the beach, what happens from time to time, he was not even taking off his shoes, not to show his feet. So I don't tell you, when you're at the level of not showing your feet, I don't tell you about somebody who is naked or topless. Well, at that time, every girl was topless. It was quite fashion, you know. When I was at the Bonfin as well, I discovered something really weird. The place was quite fanatic, but at the same time, there was a special energy. So much that after 3 or 4 days, I started to have shower, but a lot of showers, like 10, 15 showers a day. I was, cleaning and cleaning and cleaning. I wanted to tear off my skin. For about 20 days, I was always cleaning my skin, having shower. I felt like as if my skin was burning. And I needed to scratch too. And after a little while, it stopped. And Yannick told me that that's a manifestation that they see quite often. It's like a level of purity. And you come with the pollution of the outside and so on. As the sex was forbidden, and that I was very young, like my girlfriend, we had problems about this. So we decided to respect this protocol, but sometimes we were giving our baby to somebody and we used to go running outside. There were some fantastic forests around. We were practicing martial arts, which was absolutely impossible to practice in the Bonfin because there you are directly the devil if you practice martial arts. And stopping and having a little game of sex. Every time we went outside, you had some people, why do you go out? You shouldn't go out. The vibrations of the Bonfin are very strong, and when you go out, you lose some level of vibration of the Bonfin. And I said, I don't like this speech, because it's really sect. I was attracted to the Master Omraam because of freedom. Everything that he said, don't even be Japanese, don't be Chinese, don't be White Brotherhood, be just yourself. So through that, the speech of don't leave the Bonfin, it was completely refused for me. I remember a story where I was not there, I was told this story, when the master was invited in a house in the south of France, in Ardèche, which is a part of France. And he arrived in a center where people were completely fanatic about everything that is organic. And when he arrived, he said, I would like to get a tisane. So they went to fetch a branch of I don't know what, and he said, oh, no, I want a bag. I don't like that, I want a bag. So the master asking for a bag for a tisane in the center that was completely organic and natural, and it was like panic. They didn't have one. Finally, they found an old bag in the drawer. The last second they found that. And he said, I would like to get some sugar. They came with some honey. He said, no, I want real sugar. I don't like honey, I want real sugar. Again, panic. They tried to find some sugar that they didn't have in the complete house. And during that time, the master had some sugar, pieces of sugar from bar where he had been before. so unwrapped, but at least 10 pieces that he put into the glass. So it was full, thick sugar, you know. He started to move with a spoon and so on. And he said, that's perfect. And he drank that. And I can assure that he never did that before, and he never did it afterwards. So he did that only because the people were fanatic about this. So the master himself didn't like the fanaticism, even if I found him with a big problem with the sex, with the body. There I found him limited and fanatic, very strict. But for the rest, at the same time, he was not fanatic at all. He was pushing to understand in a clever way, in a clean way. After a month, I was obliged to leave, and I met Omraam for the last time. And again, he asked me how I found the school, and I said, well, there are many things that I don't like. I really love what you do. I really love what you are. Your teaching is fantastic. And he said, yes, it's the teaching of the Master Peter de Nov, Bensa Duno, and of the Master Omraam Mikhaël Aïvanhov. It's the teaching of the light. It's the teaching of the initiation towards the light. And then he said, we haven't finished together. We have to work a lot together again. And I said, well, I will do my best, Master, even if I don't feel very comfortable in this place. And I left. When I arrived at the train station, strangely enough, in the Bonfin, I was really suffocated with the cinema of the people in the Bonfin. But at the same time, when I arrived in the train station, there was somebody who was just smoking behind me, sending the smoke on me. There was somebody who tried to take my place in the line. I had to say, no, sorry, I was there before, so you go behind and so on. So I could, react. But at the same time, I said, why am I? I am in hell. Before I was in heaven, but now in hell. It's funny because when I was in the Bonfin, it was really heavy, this cinema. But I realized when I was outside in the train station, finally it was cool and nice, because when you go to the society after that, berk. We were in Saint Raphael, which is therefore a town on the seaside, and for a month we didn't go to the seaside. Even the story of the shoes with Master, I was told. I was not there when it happened. So we had half an hour before catching the train, so I went running to touch the sea with my hand. Just wanted to have the smell of the sea, because 1 month, not one visit to the sea. So, and after that, I was planning in other occasions to go back to the Bonfin. But I didn't. I didn't because I think that I was attracted and rejected at the same time. Attracted by the teaching, by the Master, but it was so heavy, all of this, the cinema, that I just said, I didn't say, it was just like this. I was half-half, and finally it didn't happen. Sometimes I spoke with the Master on the telephone because I needed to ask him some questions. And then he started to answer less and less because he started to be ill. And later on, I heard that he died. And I thought, shit, I missed it. I had the possibility. He told me that we haven't finished, that we will work together. And I missed everything because I was limited with the cinema of these people. And I knew that I had missed something. It was just too late, and the story was over. So for a month, I was accepted like part of the family. Were sometimes 2 or 3 watching the TV together. 2 or 3 and the Master Omraam. I knew his house in the Bonfin. I knew Blagost, who was a lady that was a private secretary. And I was surprised because when I was in the Bonfin, I discovered a weird story. That at the beginning, the Master Omraam was attacked in justice because he had been using sexually 40 women. 40. He went to jail because he was guilty of this. And then all the ladies, one after the other, declared that they lied. And there's only one who kept the accusation. All the others said, no, I lied. And when instead only one, the Master Omraam was free to go. And when I heard this story, I thought that I had found the reason why he was so fanatic against the body, against the sexuality. Because his way of being was too stiff, too heavy, not logical. And I thought, okay, that's a trauma. It's not a spiritual decision, it's a trauma. To this level, it's a trauma. But it's not because a master is a master that is perfect. So for me, it was acceptable. All right. He stayed 2 years in jail because some sluts said that he was guilty of using them. Of course, he's going to create around him something that is absolutely pure about sex so that no one goes back to a possibility like this. I understand that. And that was the sum up of my meeting with the Master Omraam at that time. You know, the Master Omraam loved also to joke a lot. He was not stiff and he was enjoying a lot of stuff. He used to say always a story, and he was so excited about the funny jokes that there was one brother who had as a duty to find jokes that he was trying to find. He was giving jokes to the Master Omraam, and the Master Omraam sometimes was taking one joke saying, oh, this one I keep it, it's excellent. So there was one brother, his main duty was to find new jokes. Because for Omraam, it was very important to have a lot of funny stories. And I will stop with this story, because it was his best story that he used to say very often. For that, I have to translate it a bit differently, because it was a story with a camel that in English would be a story with a monkey, because so you have to know, in French it was the story with a camel, but I will translate it as a story of a monkey, because in French we would say you have the face of a camel, saying you are like a monkey, you have the face of a monkey. And so there's a guy, he's arguing with a lady, and he tells her that she has the face of a monkey. And the woman is very unhappy. She goes to justice, and the guy is sentenced to pay a fine. And he's in front of the judge, and there's also the lady that is a little bit on the side. And the guy who has to pay the fine, he has understood his lesson. And he says, that's fine, Mr. the Judge, that's fine, sir, I was wrong, we don't call a lady monkey. But can I call Madame a monkey? And the judge is a bit surprised. Yeah, if you want to call a monkey Madame, you can if you want, I mean, you're right. Say, okay, then I have understood my lesson. Goodbye, Mr. Sir, goodbye, Mr. the Judge. And he turned to the lady and said, goodbye, Madam. And he went away. And Omraam, when he was saying this story, was laughing so much. He loved stories that were subtle. He loved when were witty. Really. For him, wittiness was very, very important. To be always awake, not submitted. That's why he loved also wrestling and sports like this, where people were creative, doing incredible stuff. He wanted us to be always challenging, open, playing, and not stiff as most of the people became. That's where we'll leave you for this chapter. I know that for those who are waiting for the story about Peter Aïvanhov, as I said before, it will come back because later in this adventure I went also to Bulgaria and I discovered a lot of stuff, so you will have your part. But now we have to discover more, a little bit about the essence of spirituality, the essence of the teaching. That is the teaching of the two masters. That's what we are going to discover in the next chapters.